I've been doing pronation and rising for more than 300 days now, and in this video I will specifically talk about the wrist gains. So to begin with, I had pretty horrible genetics for this. I always was incredibly skinny, but I managed to gain more than an inch on my wrist with this routine. They were 16 centimeters at the start and now measuring at 18.5 centimeters. So what are pronation and rising for those who don't know? Those are exercises that arm wrestlers do to strengthen their wrist in order to not lose hand control in a match, which is what I needed the most. My wrists were super weak at the start, they would always end up hurting like crazy after a match, but now they actually are a strong point of mine. And I'm 100% certain that pronation and rising are the reason why they got so strong and gained an inch in size. So how do you do pronation and rising? First you will need a judo belt, a resistance band or any kind of strap. I put the belt I've been using in the description. I did 5 sets of 60 reps for each exercises every day since day 1 with 10 kilos. Now you might be wondering why no progressive overload, and the reason is very simple. I started this routine to grow my hands thicker and they always got pumped up like crazy with that weight, so I never needed to go heavier as I kept noticing thumb gains. As I said, you can train those exercises every day as it's just supposed to be light work for hand muscle hypertrophy. Pick a light weight from 5 to 10 kilos and do around 60 reps for 5 sets of each, and you can rest for about a minute between each set. What I do is I alternate both hands and get all of my sets done quickly. Here is how you put your hand through the belt for the pronation and for the raising. Those two simple exercises might grow your wrist on their own, but I cannot say that this is all I've done for those 300 days of training. If you're a viewer of mine, you know that I train forearms a lot, and forearm training will apply huge amounts of pressure on your wrist, no matter the exercise you do, which in my opinion contributed to my wrist growth. To what extent exactly, I'm not sure, but I can give you the exercises I've been doing every day for sometimes weeks on end, besides pronation and rising. First and most frequent exercise I've been doing to train my forearms are wrist flexions. Also known as cupping in arm wrestling, this not only applies huge amounts of pressure on the wrist, but also targets the flexor muscles, which when developed well can fill all the way up to your wrist and make them look thicker. I sometimes did weeks of cupping every day, which helped my forearms grow a lot, but I had to stop because I was starting to develop a sharp elbow pain. You can do 4 sets to failure 3 times a week of this exercise after your gym sessions. As a baseline, it's pretty good. And you can of course do more if you're able to handle some high volume. I alternate the handles a lot to make sure I target every part of the muscle, but you can also use thick grips, which are cheaper. Next, I did a lot of pull-ups, but with a slight change to it. I always try to have my wrist in a cupped position, which always gives my forearms some extra work and ends up pumping them like crazy when I'm done with my sets of pull-ups. This is something I try to do with every exercise I can to get some extra forearm work. When I can hold on to something and slightly cup my wrist, I will probably do it, which I think can give some good gains in the long term. That's pretty much what I do through all my pull day, and the next exercise is related to it. Reverse curls are a very good wrist exercise as your flexor muscles are constantly battling for your wrist not to give up and bend downwards. This applies a lot of pressure on them, and I can say this with confidence as I sometimes feel a lot of pain in my wrist joints when doing this exercise after an arm wrestling session. For the past few months I've been doing reverse curls much more as I wanted my brachioradialis to get bigger, but before that I was only doing it 2 times a week during my pull day. So now I do it as a superset during my push or leg day. After I'm done with a set of triceps, let's say, I will just grab an easy bar and start doing reverse curls for 4 sets of 12 in general. These are the main components that made my wrist grow. I've used many other specialized tools and machines that are dedicated to grip strength or arm wrestling training, which I think played a role too, like the focused pronation and supination on the machine or using some arm wrestling handles. Putting your wrist through so much work will undoubtedly make them grow, as the human body will want to adapt. If you look at arm wrestlers, they have some of the thickest hand, wrist and forearms of all sports, if not the biggest of all. That's because they put their tendons, ligaments and joints through an immense amount of stress, which results in adaptation and growth. I've been arm wrestling a fair amount too through this journey, and the days after my arms from fingertip to shoulders were obliterated. Especially at the start where the pain could last up to sometimes a full week, but now I barely feel anything even after 2 to 3 hours intense arm wrestling sessions. And if you want to see some tangible results, this is a watch I received for my 15th birthday, and as you can see I was floating in it. It was way too big for my wrist, but now not only am I not able to wear it, but I can't even get it past my hands anymore because of how thick they got from all that training. Same goes for my right wrist, which is a bit smaller than my left. I cannot get it past the hand either. I did manage to put it on with some soap, but I couldn't close it because it was pinching my skin. This is everything I did for my wrist. Now you have the keys to do it yourself. Subscribe and check the fitness community in the description.